Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney panics, Marvel staff fired as they cancel TV shows and films. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from The Hollywood Reporter, Marvel lays off 15 employees. The move comes after Disney CEO Bob Iger said the company would reduce output, particularly at Marvel. And from Cosmic Book News, layoffs at Marvel follow MCU reduction. Only one movie getting released this year with Deadpool and Wolverine, which follows the MCU's downward spiral since Avengers Endgame. Disney is cutting back severely on how many TV shows and films they produce with the Marvel brand because they've had so many failures and such pushback from people who used to be fans. They're not necessarily going to the fans now and saying, look, what would you like to see? We'll make whatever you want. Please take us back. They're not doing that. In fact, they just recently announced they're creating a female version of the Silver Surfer, introduced originally through the Fantastic Four, to feature in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie. From the Daily Wire, Marvel courts controversy again by casting woman in typically male Fantastic Four role. The Silver Surfer could really have been a hit character for Marvel. If you remember how the Silver Surfer was depicted in the Fox Fantastic Four films, he looked pretty great. He has a very dramatic and iconic story behind him. He's a beloved Marvel character. There's no reason to create a female version of him. From The Hollywood Reporter, Marvel lays off 15 employees. Layoffs took place at Marvel Entertainment in New York and Marvel Studios in Burbank, California. Around 15 people were affected, including junior-level employees in production and development. And from Cosmic Book News, layoffs at Marvel follow MCU reduction. With Marvel Studios only releasing one movie this year, and with it confirmed the MCU is going through a massive reduction, it's learned layoffs have happened at the company. It's no secret Marvel's been suffering since the release of Avengers Endgame and hasn't had a billion-dollar blockbuster amid a string of failures. Recently, they had their worst failure ever with the release of The Marvels. It massively bombed, so much so, it's the worst performing MCU movie and superhero movie of all time. Tatiana Maslany was also asked about a She-Hulk Season 2, where she said they blew the budget with the first season and Disney said no thanks to a second season. And that's easy to understand. Disney tried to push She-Hulk as hard as they could, but it was only getting negative feedback. The budget was absolutely astronomical at least $25 million per episode. Back in the summer of last year, Disney CEO Bob Iger confirmed they would be slowing down the release of both Marvel and Star Wars releases. Iger recently addressed the pullback in Disney's February earnings call. Quote, so the first step that we've taken is that we've reduced volume, Iger said. We've reduced output, particularly at Marvel. When you fix or when you address these issues within movies, you do three things. You get very aggressive at making sure the films you're making can be even better. Sometimes you kill projects you don't believe in. And of course, you put new things in the pipeline that you do believe in, that you have much more confidence in. And we're doing all of that. He's got a good assessment here. That is correct. If they're doing too much, and they're stretching themselves to the limit, there's no point in trying to push out more than they can possibly do. They had these problems with doing special effects. The special effects companies couldn't even keep up with the volume of what they wanted. So even though they were spending millions and millions of dollars on special effects, they couldn't even complete the effects when they released Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So they paid for it, but they didn't even get a finished product out of it. Plus, it was obvious they had a lot of cheats in that movie where they really couldn't get to the special effects. So cutting down on excessive production is a good way to improve quality immediately, no matter what you're doing. It all gets a little bit better when you're not doing as much. I still don't have faith that we're going to really enjoy the movies that Marvel is putting out or the shows that Marvel is putting out. They've gone so far off the mark. You can see this with Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine has some good aesthetics to it. The trailer looked pretty good, but it didn't look great. It looked like an imitation of something that would have been really good if the people who were making it were sincere about making great superhero movies in the first place. It's difficult to describe, but if you love the early Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, you know what I'm talking about. The Marvel shows on Disney Plus also haven't done that well, as the ratings aren't the best. Only Loki has multiple seasons. The X-Men 97 ratings also look to be equal to or lower than Ms. Marvel, the MCU's least watched live-action series, along with Echo. Following the huge failure of Secret Invasion, Marvel Studios reworked its television division. They needed to do that. The way they were making those TV shows was almost inexplicable. They had their own production process. They weren't structuring their shows as if they were television shows. They didn't have a showrunner. They didn't have structure. They had almost unlimited budgets. And here's how they reworked their entire television division. From Cosmic Book News, Marvel TV on Disney Plus getting new direction following Secret Invasion failure. Brad Winterbaum, Marvel's head of streaming, television, and animation, responds. Marvel fans have something to look forward to as Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus will see a new direction, which follows the news of Daredevil Born Again getting a reboot and the Secret Invasion series being such a disappointment. The new direction includes hiring showrunners for the Marvel shows, hiring full-time Marvel executives specifically for the television side of the MCU, and focusing on quality stories. This kind of structure is absolutely crucial. You can't have people distracted working on multiple projects in multiple formats with no direct responsibility for a project. It's incredible it went on this long, but it explains why some of the shows and movies have been so terrible. Here's what happened with Secret Invasion. Regarding Secret Invasion being such a disappointment and failure, it has a 54% Rotten Tomatoes score and even a worse audience score of 48%. The Hollywood Reporter went through all the problems that surrounded Secret Invasion, including Marvel firing writer Kyle Bradstreet, who'd been working on the series for a year until Marvel decided to go in a new direction. Bradstreet wrote and executive produced the USA Network Emmy winner Mr. Robot. So after Marvel hired a new team, it said people working on the series broke off into factions with leaders vying for supremacy over the project. No leadership. Quote, it was weeks of people not getting along, an insider told a Hollywood Reporter. In response to all the problems, Marvel Studios sent Jonathan Schwartz, a senior executive and member of Marvel's creative committee known as the Parliament, to fix the disaster. It's also said Secret Invasion was falling behind schedule so badly that it was going to cause actors to leave the series who had other commitments. Marvel spent an absolute fortune on Secret Invasion. It was not well received, and it was supposed to help set up the Marvels movie, which also was a massive failure. Without structure, they can't get anything done. One of the first things Disney did to try to get Marvel under control was to fire Victoria Alonso, who was responsible for a lot of the problems at Disney. Production problems, but also putting in her politics and pushing her ideology on the films. From Variety, inside Victoria Alonso's shocking exit from Marvel Studios. The exit was shocking. It was completely unexpected. She was pretty much physically marched out of the office, violating her contract, and they paid her millions of dollars, which you knew they were going to be doing that. When you fire someone who is a high-level executive at a company like Disney, they're going to walk away with millions of dollars. Bob Chapek also walked away with millions of dollars, former CEO of Disney. But of course, getting rid of Victoria Alonso was not quite enough to fix Marvel. From the Daily Wire, Marvel courts controversy again by casting woman in typically male Fantastic Four role. The Silver Surfer, and that's this guy. Really incredible, because if they had done the right thing by the Silver Surfer and just let him be a cool male character, he could have been his own film franchise. It won't ever develop into that now. It's like Disney doesn't care about making Marvel financially successful. Marvel and Disney are once again courting controversy by casting a female actress to take on the typically male Fantastic Four role of the Silver Surfer in the upcoming reboot. Actress Julia Garner, the girl from Ozark, has been picked to play a female version of the iconic comic book character and Herald of Galactus. Sources told Deadline that the Emmy-winning Ozark star will play the Shalabal version of the Silver Surfer from the comics. Bounding into Comics explained that Marvel Studios dived deep into the comic book lore to find justification to not use the Norrin Radd version of the comic book hero played by a male. In 1968, in an issue titled Silver Surfer Volume 1, Shalabal is depicted as the Silver Surfer's love interest. For the next 50 years, her role is just that, a supporting one. Then in 1997, her character is part of the final 2 issues of Earth X, when she's briefly granted her lover's superpowers so she could stop an invading force. Shalabal's total time as the Silver Surfer was 4 pages across 2 issues. In 2016, in Silver Surfer Volume 8, Number 2, Things Change, writer Dan Slott changed Shalabal from Radd's love interest to Zenla's keeper of the Great Truth. In the 2007 film Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, the title character was played by male actor Doug Jones. His character was also voiced by male actor Lawrence Fishburne, and it was a great version of the character. Even in the official Marvel guide, the company uses he and him to describe the Silver Surfer. Quote, since his debut in 1966, readers have seen the Sentinel of the Spaceways serve as Galactus' loyal herald, revolt against his leader, live on Earth and cruise the cosmos on his trusty board, a description on the site reads. In that time, we've learned the answers to some of the burning questions about the Silver Surfer. And now, the decision by Marvel to cast an actress as the Silver Surfer has sparked an online debate. One user comments this way, quote, not to sound like one of those everything is woke guys, but why change this Silver Surfer to a woman? I know there was a female Silver Surfer in the comics, but the main surfer was always the guy. Of course, it's because Disney has an agenda and they don't like the race, gender, or sexual preferences of the original Marvel characters. Netflix is also waking up and reorganizing their films department. From Breitbart, Netflix announces layoffs in films division. Netflix is reportedly restructuring its films division and has announced it's laying off 15 employees in its initial phase of the effort. The company did not release the identities of those being let go, but the restructuring is being undertaken by the new film studio chief Dan Lin, according to Deadline. Lin recently replaced former division head Scott Stuber, who left the position last month. And this is what's changing over at Netflix. From Breitbart, Netflix will make fewer lousy, super expensive auteur movies. What's an auteur movie? An auteur is a filmmaker whose personal influence and artistic control over a movie are so great that the filmmaker is regarded as the author of the movie. Netflix, the only streamer making a profit, will reportedly no longer make lousy, super expensive blockbusters or lousy auteur movies. Netflix's new film chief, Dan Lin, started work on April 1st. The news is that Netflix is no longer only the home of expensive action flicks featuring big movie stars like The Gray Man with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, or Red Notice with Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, and Dwayne Johnson, according to the New York Times. This also marks the end of paying top dollar to lure auteur filmmakers like Martin Scorsese and Bradley Cooper. The previous Netflix pay structure was nuts. Named directors and stars earned huge salaries based on back-end money they might have earned if the movie had been successful in the movie theaters. Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds reportedly earned $20 million each for Red Notice. Dwayne Johnson earned $50 million. Will Smith earned $20 million for Bright. Adam Sandler signed a 4-movie deal worth $250 million. Ryan Reynolds earned another $27 million for something called Six Underground. Netflix paid $450 million for 2 Knives Out movies. Daniel Craig grabbed $100 million. Mark Wahlberg earned $30 million for Spencer Confidential. Netflix paid Jennifer Lawrence $25 million for Don't Look Up. Leonardo DiCaprio was definitely paid more than that, probably twice as much. To pay that kind of money for what's turned out to be a big pile of forgettable TV movies is absurd. Other than Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, not a single one of those titles has had any cultural staying power. They have all disappeared without a trace. Of course, Netflix was willing to spend a couple of $1 billion on star salaries and auteur movies that the studios didn't want to finance as a way to legitimize Netflix as being associated with big names. But as one commenter said, without Netflix, who will fund our favorite filmmakers' worst films? Dan Lin, the new sheriff looking out for Netflix's 260 million subscribers, appears to understand that there's a problem when a majority of the 10 most popular movies on Netflix come from other studios. So this is how things are going to be handled going forward. Lin wants his team to become more aggressive producers, developing their own material rather than waiting for projects from producers and agents to come to them. This approach, the thinking goes, should help them have more say over the quality of the films. So instead of waiting around for creators to say, hey, I've got a film project, do you want to buy it? They will have producers that put together their own projects just for Netflix. That's the way they should have been operating all along. It's interesting, same issue with Disney. It's all structural. It's basic structural things that these companies get wrong until they lose billions of dollars and then eventually realize, oh, okay, we'll just change it around to be what it should have been in the first place. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.